Tommy Norris, a landman for a Texas oil company, sits bound to a chair, a bag covering his head. His captors are cartels unwilling to part with the land his company, Amtex, needs for drilling rights. When the boss arrives, Tommy lays out the deal. His company has the legal claim, but the cartel holds the land. Surprisingly, the boss signs the lease without much resistance and walks away with his men. Freed, Tommy climbs into his truck, downs a few beers, and speeds off. His voiceover explains that his job is securing leases and handling the daily chaos of the oil business. 6 months later, during a routine drug drop on an empty road, a tanker barrels onto the scene, giving neither the plane nor the van time to move. The impact wiped out the shipment and the people guarding it. Elsewhere, Tommy's son, Cooper, steps into the picture, joining one of the crews working under his father's company. Tommy arrives at the crash site where Sheriff Walt was already investigating. He reveals the plane belongs to Amtex but was reported stolen 6 months ago. Walt, frustrated, asks why he wasn't informed sooner. Tommy explains the report went to aviation authorities and that such thefts are common, with stolen equipment often reappearing in days. Back in his truck, Tommy gets a call from his ex-wife Angela, and she reminds him that it's his weekend with his daughter Ainsley, and he tries to delay it, but Angela won't budge and she has plans and won't leave Ainsley home alone with her boyfriend. Tommy calls and updates Monty Miller, and at the job site, Cooper, still the rookie, is sent dangerously high to reach a valve. He slips on the way down, injuring his arm, and Tommy meets the landowner whose property was damaged in the crash, and they agree on compensation. Ainsley arrives with her boyfriend Dakota, a local football star, and Tommy barely hides his disapproval. On the way home, they stop at a game for Dakota's sake, and Ainsley reveals she's applying to a college in Alabama, Dakota's school, since he got a scholarship. At night, Tommy loses patience with Dakota all over his daughter, and he sends the boy to the couch while Ainsley stays in his room. Alone, he warns her that Dakota might not be forever, and Ainsley insists that she loves him. She begs to sleep next to Dakota, saying she's never had the chance to just hold him, but when she finally gets her wish, Dakota refuses to cuddle if intimacy isn't involved, and Ainsley went back to Tommy in tears. The next morning, Cooper and his crew get to work at an oil rig, fixing a pipe. When they realize they're using the wrong tool, Cooper is sent back to the truck to grab the right one, and unfamiliar to the equipment, he fumbles around and suddenly the rig erupts in an explosion, and the force throws Cooper backward into the truck. The oil rig explosion kills Cooper's entire crew, leaving him the sole survivor. Stunned, he lingers amidst the wreckage, and meanwhile, Tommy, Ainsley, and his friends Nate and Dale start their day unaware. Ainsley cries over Dakota leaving, and in the bathroom, Dale accidentally walked in on Ainsley. She hit him before running out, and Dale got injured. Then Tommy's phone rings and Walt reports the explosion, and Tommy called Monty as he drove to the site to inform him. At the site, Tommy sees Cooper in an ambulance but focuses on the rig. Ignoring the injured man, he insists on shutting a valve himself, getting hurt in the process. Afterward, he drinks and smokes and orders the fire crew to take over before heading to the hospital. Meanwhile, attorney Rebecca Falcone lands, ready to handle Amtex's oil legal mess. At the hospital, Tommy updates Angela on Ainsley's breakup and Cooper, and he then refuses surgery for his severed fingertip, instead slicing it off entirely with a pocket knife. Unfazed, he tells the stunned doctor to stitch it up before heading to check up on Cooper, and before he gets there, Walt calls to tell him the bodies have been found. In the ER, Tommy gives Cooper no comfort, just a blunt warning. If he doesn't rethink his career, the next grieving family could be his own. Later, Tommy goes to a bar, and a flirtatious call with Angela ends with her confirming that she'll be there in the morning. Meanwhile, Rebecca checks into her hotel before meeting Tommy at the bar. She shifts focus from the plane crash to the rig explosion to minimize legal fallout. Tommy then agrees, but pushes back on the real issue: outdated and unsafe equipment. When Rebecca asks to speak with Cooper, he stalls, insisting that she wait. That night, Tommy and Ainsley have dinner, and they take turns talking to Cooper, who quit school to work for Tommy. Ainsley dismisses him as a loser, but Tommy disagrees, saying the oil patch attracts dreamers and not failures. The next morning, Tommy picks Cooper up at the hospital, and on the drive, Cooper declares that he wants to be a landman like his father. Unimpressed, Tommy warns that most landmen struggle, and Cooper counters that Monty's success came from perseverance and not quitting. The comment hits a nerve, and Tommy stops the truck, and frustrated, Tommy corrects him. It wasn't about quitting. Monty had a trust fund, and Tommy had nothing, so he had no choice but to push forward. Cooper remains determined, and he doesn't just want to work in oil, and he wants to run a company and needs to learn everything first. He asks to join another crew. Tommy reminds him people will blame him for his past team's death, but Cooper stands firm, and finally, Tommy agrees to find him a spot. Tommy and Ainsley pick up Angela from the airport before heading to the country club, and meanwhile, Monty plays golf at another club, frustrating his companions by walking the course instead of using a cart. He discussed company matters with his lawyers, and the topic shifts to Tommy. The lawyer suggests firing him, blaming him for the missing plane and unsafe oil patches, an easy scapegoat to dodge an $80 million lawsuit. But Monty wasn't convinced, and Tommy was too valuable, and replacing him would mean hiring someone less capable. At the trailer, Cooper was ambushed by crew members connected to the Jimenez family, who blame him for their cousin's death. The fight escalates, even when one of them pulls a gun, and outnumbered, Cooper still holds his own. His resilience earns the respect of the boss, the crew leader who intervenes. Instead of punishing him, the boss offers him a spot on his crew, reminding him that death in the oil fields is always a risk. Meanwhile, Tommy gets a call from Rebecca requesting a visit to the crash site. Leaving Angela and Ainsley at the club, he picks her up, and on the way, he calls Nate, who warns him to be careful. Cooper, struggling with grief and hostility from workers, visits a bereaved family. Some cousins try to stop him, but Isabel invites him inside, offering food and a drink. There, Cooper bonds with Ariana, Elvio's widow. He briefly makes her laugh as he struggles with spicy food, but the moment fades as grief overtakes her, and she leans on him in tears. Meanwhile, Tommy and Rebecca reach the crash site, and he recounts the explosion, but she shifts focus to industry theft. Tommy explains why reporting stolen assets wasn't worth it, and cartels take trucks, using them for drug transport, and then return them. Reporting them means legal red tape, costing more in lost equipment. Only independent oil companies deal with this. Major corporations remain untouched. Later, Tommy picks up Angela and Ainsley from the country club, both passed out after too many margaritas. Back home, tipsy Ainsley asks to stay with Tommy until college. He reminds her Angela has custody, but she insists she's old enough to choose. That night, Tommy brings it up with Angela, who is still half drunk and makes a pass at him, and vulnerable, she admits she only married her husband for Ainsley's sake, and dreads being alone in their big house. She argues that Ainsley doesn't want to live with Tommy, and she just wants to escape her breakup. If she keeps running, she'll never learn to face her problems. The next day, Monty orders Tommy to shut down a nearly dry oil patch and restructure the drilling process. Boss wastes no time to give orders. Cooper, still green, struggles to keep up, uncertain of his role. As the rig arrives, he watches Dale and Boss and the crew work in sync, positioning heavy machinery and working from dawn till dusk. Nate and Tommy meet with a lawyer about the plane theft and crash. The trucking company that hit the plane is suing MTEX, blaming them for leaving it on the road. The lawyer immediately questions why the theft wasn't reported to local authorities, and before Tommy can respond, Nate steps in, producing documents proving Tommy reported it to the FAA. Outside, Tommy, impressed, invites her for a drink, and Angela and Ainsley, restless, return to the country club, while Tommy and Rebecca celebrate at the Patch Cafe. The night takes a turn when they stop a visibly underage escort from picking up a customer and confronting the bartender that they dismissed. Her ID says she's 22. They continued their conversation, and Tommy, drawing from experience, explains the oil industry's boom and bust nature, sharing insights from different places that he's worked at and the patterns that emerge with each surge and collapse. Meanwhile, Angela and Ainsley's evening plans derail when they're turned away from the country club due to a private event, and instead of heading home, they detour to the cafe and immediately spot Tommy and Rebecca deep in conversation. Fueled by jealousy, both storm over just as Tommy and Rebecca prepare to leave. Before he can defuse the tension, Angela invites Rebecca to supper, and to Tommy's surprise, she accepts, teasing that she's eager to learn even more about him. At the rig, Cooper finds his footing amongst the crew, everything running smoothly until disaster strikes. Antonio gets his arm caught in the drill pipe elevator, and the severity knocks him unconscious. Boss takes charge, giving orders for Cooper and another worker to get Antonio down from the derrick, and the team moves fast, securing him as Gale arrives within minutes. He rushes Antonio to the hospital, but tells the crew that the rig must be operational by morning. With a man down, Cooper steps up, taking on a bigger role to keep things running, and back at the cafe, Angela reminisces about their past. She recalls the oil booms and the night Tommy surprised her with George straight tickets, and Rebecca and Ainsley listen, entertained by the memory. Tommy, however, grows tense when Angela shifts to what came next, the market crash that cost them everything. Tommy cuts dinner short to check on the rig, and Rebecca offers to drive Angela and Ainsley home. At the site, Tommy reviews the accident report and ensures things are under control before heading back. Meanwhile, Rebecca uses the drive to question Angela about sticking around Tommy despite being remarried, and Angela brushes it off, then shifts focus to Rebecca, casually stating that she isn't Tommy's type. Rebecca acknowledges the age gap, but Angela presses, listing reasons why she didn't measure up. And back home, Tommy finds Ainsley upset on the sofa. She lashes out at Angela, believing her mother abandoned him when the market crashed to marry someone wealthier. Tommy tries to explain. It wasn't just about money. Losing everything changed him, and their marriage was doomed either way. Upstairs, Angela, in tears, reminisces about their past. She insists that they were happy, but Tommy doesn't scapegoat it. She spent much of their marriage miserable due to his long absences. Only parts of their relationship had actually worked. And half serious, Angela says that those few good things might be worth staying for. She pushes him to reconsider, saying that she'd leave her husband to try again. Eventually, Tommy gives in, and by morning, the decision was made. Ainsley is thrilled, hugging them both. Later at the rig, Cooper's team finally gives a break after a grueling shift, and Dale responds the well is operational. Tommy updates Monty and then checks with Boss about Cooper's performance, and pleased, he invites Cooper to a family meal, sharing the news that Angela and Ainsley were staying, and that they're giving their relationship another shot. Unlike Ainsley, who's ecstatic, Cooper stays distant, unwilling to share her excitement. That night, Cooper gets a call from Ariana, and she wanted to see him, and after a pause, he agrees. Tommy and Dale inspect wells after the last bust, and Dale suggests reworking them since they've been running for 35 years. As they go through their rounds, Tommy's phone rings, and it was Angela, and she confirms that he's working, and then reminds him about dinner and that Cooper will be there. Tommy calls Monty for approval on the reworks, and Monty agrees but insists that they handle one well at a time, submitting reports before moving forward. With that settled, Tommy, Dale, and Boss wrap up, joking about marriage, wives, and divorce as they drive off in their MTEX truck. Meanwhile, Cooper visits Ariana, who's drowning in bills, and he helps organize payments, offering financial advice. Monty's helicopter lands at a private industry gathering, where a heated debate erupts over clean energy and corporate responsibility. Monty dismisses concerns, arguing oil companies are already seen as villains but remain essential, and the focus should be on keeping oil profitable and not alternatives. At Ariana's, Cooper mows the yard. She brings him a drink, and they talk about aging, parenthood, and the exhaustion of raising a child alone. When she says the front lawn doesn't need cutting, he keeps going, explaining that helping with chores is how he supports her. Suddenly, Manuel arrives, gun in hand, accusing Cooper of taking advantage of Ariana. Tension spikes as he makes it clear that he sees Cooper as an outsider playing husband. Ariana snaps, calling him out, and since Elvio's death, none of his so-called friends checked in. No one cared if she could pay bills, keep her house, or feed her baby. But the moment another man helps, Manuel decides to take a stand. Manuel doesn't back down, accusing Cooper of overstepping, and defiant, Ariana kisses Cooper, and the baby's cries cut the moment, pulling her inside. Before leaving, she warns Manuel to go or she'll call the police, and he backs off but promises Cooper that they'll settle things at work. At Nate's house, doubling as his office, Rebecca arrives to finalize settlements for 3 workers killed in the blowout. When Nate mentions a 401k owed to the families, Rebecca advises against informing them, confident that they can afford legal counsel. She plans to pressure them into settling by any means necessary, and meanwhile, Angela redecorates using her ex-husband's credit card, and as movers unload furniture, Rebecca cuts her meeting short. Outside, a neighbor invites Ainsley to a party, and at the oil patch, Tommy faces the cartel. Jimmy demands compensation for a lost drug shipment. Tommy refuses, pointing out that the cartel stole M-Tex's plane, landed it on M-Tex's road, and got caught in their own mess. Unmoved, Jimmy warns his boss is angry, wells will start blowing up and men will die. After they leave, boss tells Tommy the workers won't return without a solution. Unbeknownst to anyone, Dale secretly records the exchange, and realizing the danger, Tommy calls Monty for an urgent meeting. Tommy and Dale return home to find Nate and Ainsley at dinner, immediately noticing Angela's extravagant makeover. Cooper arrives and the family sits down for supper. Dinner unravels fast. Tommy pulls Angela aside to calm her. Meanwhile, Cooper takes a call from Ariana, reassuring her after Manuel's threats. But when he enters his room, he's ambushed and Manuel and his cousins beat him badly. Tommy wakes up early for his meeting with Monty, and Angela insists on coming, needing to talk to Victor. She gives Tommy a final chance to back out. Impressed, he admits that he doesn't think that they'll last but can't say no to her, and on the way, Tommy gets a call and detours to a job site. There, a frustrated crew deals with a misload batch of steel pipes, and sorting them will take days, and one worker, standing atop an unsecure pipe, stomps down in frustration, triggering a collapse. The steel shifts, trapping the workers beneath its weight. Only his head remains visible. In his final moment, he reaches for Tommy, asking for his phone to call his wife, and Tommy hesitates, unsure of what to say. Finally, he tells him to keep it simple, just say he loves her. Rushing back to the truck, Tommy grabs Angela's phone and orders her to stay inside. He calls 911, but it was too late, and the worker takes his last breath before help arrives. Then Tommy turns and Angela stands outside, witnessing everything. Tommy and Angela pull up to Monty's house, but before they step out, Monty's wife appears, making it clear that Tommy is welcome, and Angela is not. And inside, Monty's wife leads Tommy to the living room, where Monty finishes a call. Outside, his daughter and her friends party by the pool, music spilling into the house, and once off the phone, Monty listens as Tommy lays out the problem, and the cartel was making demands, and the crew won't work until it's resolved. Monty steps away to make a few calls, and meanwhile, Rebecca and Nate visit the Medina residence to settle with the widows of the blowout victim. Isabel and Armando's wife sign immediately, swayed by the $250,000 check, but Ariana hesitates. Instead of signing, she calls Cooper. The voice that answers isn't his, and it's Sheriff Wald. He tells her Cooper had been badly injured, and after this, she rushes out, leaving the unsigned paperwork behind. Angela arrives at Victor's only to find the locks changed, and forced to ring the bell. She's greeted not by Victor but by his lawyers, divorce papers in hand. The exchange was quick and she gets the car, a gift Victor can't take back. Without fuss, she signs, finalizing the divorce, and Victor barely acknowledges the moment, already draped in a new woman at his pool party. At Monty's, Nate calls for Tommy. Urgently, he delivers the news. Cooper was airlifted to a hospital, and is in surgery. He's heading there now and urges Tommy to call Sheriff Walt for details. Tommy wastes no time, jumping into his truck and speeding toward the hospital. When he reaches Walt, the pieces fall into place, and Manuel was the prime suspect and the attack was over a woman. Tommy calls Angela and they agree to meet at a hospital, and Cooper's surgery was a success, and the family gathers in his recovery room, and Ainsley wastes no time scolding him, annoyed that he made her miss the patch party. Cooper fires back, their unusual sibling banter starting, and Dale lightens the mood with a few jokes before excusing himself, leaving Cooper alone with Ariana. Overwhelmed with guilt, Ariana blames herself, but Cooper reassures her. Tommy and Angela arrive at the hospital, and at the sight of Cooper's injuries, Angela panics, but Tommy stays composed, asking her to wait outside while he talks to their son. Inside, Cooper confirms Manuel and Antonio ambushed him at the moment he got there, and Tommy calls boss, making it clear that he's handling this personally, and security was already tracking Manuel and the others. Next, he calls Sheriff Walt, requesting a 10-minute head start before law enforcement step in. With Dale by his side, Tommy drives to the staff headquarters. Outside Manuel's trailer, Boss and his men wait in silence, and the door swings open, and Tommy unleashes his fury, beating Manuel. Antonio meets the same fate, dragged out back by the boss's crew, where the real punishment begins. Under pressure, Antonio talks, naming everyone involved in Cooper's attack, and before things escalate further, Sheriff Walt and his team arrive, finding Tommy standing over a bloodied Manuel. On the road, Tommy voices his concern to Dale as he needs to get Cooper out before it's too late, and his son wasn't built for this life. Cooper was discharged from the hospital, where Tommy waits to take him home. Before they can leave though, Ariana intervenes, insisting Cooper come with her instead. Tommy tries to change his mind, but Ariana, feeling responsible, refuses to back down. At Ariana's house, she gives Cooper her bed while she sleeps on the couch. Elsewhere, Monty attends a business lunch where an entrepreneur pitches a $300 million drilling project. Monty steps away to call Tommy to announce the deal is happening, and Tommy immediately warns him about cartel activity and smuggling in the area. Monty brushes off the concerns, assuming he'll handle it. At the oil patch, Tommy, Dale, and Boss's crew work the wells, and Dale complains that Monty assigned only one useless security guard. Some cartel men arrive, demanding drilling stop unless their boss gets paid. One pulls a gun on Tommy, but Boss's crew, ex-criminals and dealers, were armed and ready, and outnumbered, the cartel wastely retreat. Later, Angela and Tommy enjoy drinks and dancing at the Patch Cafe, with Ainsley finally attending a patch party with a new friend. Her beauty draws attention, including from local quarterback Ryder Sampson, and confident and ambitious, Ainsley impresses him and they quickly hit it off, slipping away from the crowd. Meanwhile, at Ariana's house, Cooper insists that she take the bed and she hesitates but agrees. Later, she changes her mind, admitting she hasn't been held since Elbo's death, and keeping his word to be a gentleman, Cooper holds her as she drifts off. Angela wakes a snoring Tommy, insisting he pick up Ainsley from the party, and using Angela's GPS, Tommy tracks Ainsley down, only to find her in the back of Ryder's truck, caught in a heated makeout session. He yanks Ryder out, delivering a warning, and drags Ainsley to the truck. Unbeknownst to them, a cartel member had been tracking Tommy, watching the entire scene through night vision goggles. On the ride home, Ainsley challenges Tommy's overreaction, insisting that she's an adult, and exhausted, Tommy reminds her he's still her father. The next morning at Ariana's, Cooper and Ariana share an intimate moment before the doorbell interrupts them. Nate and Rebecca arrive, pushing Ariana to sign the settlement agreement, and still hesitant, Ariana waves. Their conversation is cut short when Cooper steps in, and Ariana asks him to review the agreement, and as he introduces himself, Rebecca's expression shifts. Recognizing him, she leans back with a silly smile, remarking that they've been looking everywhere for him. Rebecca immediately goes after Cooper, grilling him about the accident and making it clear that she intends to pin the blame on him. With his involvement with Ariana, she now holds all the leverage, and if Ariana sues, Rebecca will paint their relationship as a conflict of interest, damaging both Ariana's case and Cooper's credibility. Meanwhile, Monty meets the governor over lunch, seeking a favor, and he offers 75,000 acres as training grounds for the Texas National Guard in exchange for their visible presence near his oil wells, just enough to intimidate the cartel. The governor finds the deal fair and directs his assistant to connect Tommy with the colonel in charge. Back at Ariana's, Rebecca's victory was short-lived when Cooper counters with a bold offer: $1 million. He was ready to back Ariana in a lawsuit, knowing Monty's wells won't survive an OSHA investigation. With insider knowledge of the company's violations, they have leverage, and the news reaches Monty fast. Concerned, he agrees to a payout, but insists Ariana be the only recipient, bound by an NDA. Cooper refuses. The settlement must be equal for all widows. With no choice, Monty concedes, and Cooper quits MTEX on the spot. Tommy spent the day working, while Angela and Ainsley return to the nursing home, and he meets with the colonel, finalizing the training grounds. Meanwhile, Monty suffers a heart attack and is rushed to the hospital, and his wife, unfazed, tells Tommy unless he needs something, she doesn't want to be bothered. Tommy gets a call from Rebecca insisting on an urgent discussion about Cooper. Before meeting her, Nate fills him in, and Cooper and Ariana's connection seems real. Ainsley goes on a date with Ryder. Tommy's visit to Ariana's house turns tense fast, and his questions about Cooper feel judgmental, making Ariana defensive. Frustrated, she admits she doesn't fully understand their relationship, but she likes how Cooper looks at her, something Elvio never did. Her emotions boil over and she kicks Tommy out, and before leaving, he offers a rare moment of serenity, saying he hopes she and Cooper last. And if they don't, he hopes she finds someone who loves her the way she deserved. Meeting Rebecca, Tommy listens as she spins a new conspiracy, and rattled by her confrontation with Cooper, she now wants to pin the accident on him, arguing that with his background, he could have intentionally blown up the well just to be with Ariana. Tommy shuts it down immediately. His warning was clear, and if she pursues this out of spite, she'll have to deal with him. Meanwhile, Ainsley takes Ryder to the nursing home after a swim, and at the same time, the Texas National Guard blew up a group of drug dealers mid-exchange of Monty's training grounds, and the war between oil and cartel has officially escalated. The colonel panics upon realizing his team just blew up cartel members during a helicopter drill, and he wants to report the incident, but Tommy advises against involving authorities. Instead, he contacts the cartel leader, offering him a chance to handle the cleanup himself. The cartel leader agrees but insists on a face-to-face meeting, and as they talk, Tommy realizes he's being watched. Before dealing with the cartel, Tommy stops by the hospital to check on Monty, recovering from a heart bypass surgery. And while there, Jerry and the owner of the Dallas Cowboys visit and deliver a lecture about prioritizing family. Once Jerry leaves, Monty dismisses the speech, claiming his hospitalization isn't stress but genetics, and his heart was bound to fail eventually. Still, the scare pushes Monty to rethink things, and he offers Tommy a promotion to Vice President of Operations, but there's a catch. He must work alongside Rebecca, newly named VP of Exploration. Tommy immediately protests, wanting nothing to do with Rebecca after their recent conflicts. But Monty stands firm and Tommy has to make it work, and before leaving, Tommy pulls Monty's wife aside, urging her to keep him away from work until he fully recovers. Afterward, Tommy calls Angela and Ainsley, telling them that he loves them, and in return, they share their latest adventure, an upcoming club trip with the elderly residents. Back at Tommy's house, he finds Nate fuming over Monty's decision, and hiring Rebecca to negotiate leases was a disaster waiting to happen, but they both know they have no choice. Angela makes dinner while Tommy interrupts Ainsley and her boyfriend's so-called Bible study, which is really Ainsley trying to convince him to strip for the old folks' outing. At dinner, Tommy and Angela bicker over the right way to eat paella, but as always, they make up quickly. In a rare moment of honesty, Tommy admits he constantly puts on a show, expecting appreciation in return, and acts out when he doesn't get it. He confesses he loves her and that after every hard day, all he truly wants is to come home to her. Late at night, Ariana wakes to find Cooper still working, and she shares his vision, starting his own oil company, moving to Fort Worth, and buying her the house of her dreams. He wants to build a future where he has enough to make all her aspirations a reality. At the hospital, Monty's condition takes a sudden turn and his heart rate spikes, and breathing becomes difficult. The next morning, Angela and Ainsley leave early for their trip with the elderly. Meanwhile, Nate and Dale, unimpressed by Angela's health kick, grumble over their breakfast, fruit bowls replacing their usual snacks. Outside, Tommy lights a cigarette, taking a quiet moment for himself, and his phone rings and it was Cammy, and the moment he answers, his entire demeanor shifts. Determined, Cooper takes his first step and successfully convinces a landowner to lease an oil well. Tommy walks barefoot through his backyard, visibly shaken. A wolf stands in a distance, locking eyes with him, and before he can react, his neighbor fires a shot, killing the animal instantly. He curses the wolf for preying on local pets before walking away, leaving Tommy frozen, staring at the lifeless body. Monty's condition worsens and he needs a heart transplant. While he was inside, Tommy talks to Alan and Cammy. With Monty's condition, Tommy was immediately pushed into a higher position, becoming the new president of MTEX. Though hesitant, Tommy eventually agrees and begins reviewing Monty's unfinished deals. However, he makes it clear that Cammy and Alan must always be involved as board members, ensuring that they remain part of the company's decision-making process. But he was still uneasy about his sudden promotion, and he urges Cammy to sell the company, believing that liquidating its assets would secure financial stability for generation. But Cammy refuses, insisting that Monty would never have wanted that. Determined to honor his legacy, she chooses to keep the company running. Angela and Ainsley were still in a club with the elders. Ainsley encourages Ryder, who was nervous about stripping for the elders, and he gets out to do what he is asked. Tommy reaches out to Rebecca to renegotiate the farm-out agreement after she finalizes her decision, despite his personal dislike for her. He informs her that he is now the president. Tommy then reaches out to Nate, instructing him to finalize the farm-out deal, which is worth over $160 million and has already been approved by Monty. The project carries significant risks with the potential to drive the Millers out of business. However, if everything goes as planned, it could bring in over $1 billion. Nate was hesitant and disagrees with moving forward, but Tommy insists, informing him that Rebecca will be handling the negotiations. He tells Nate to give her all the necessary details, ensuring she has everything she needs to push the deal through. Ariana, cleaned out, picks up her late husband Elio's belongings, and as she was doing so, she stumbles upon old photographs and starts crying. Cooper meets the first client that he got and explains the process to him, and he explains the share that he's going to take, and the meeting ends in agreement. Rebecca hesitates after Tommy explains the negotiation, saying that it's not right, but Tommy tells her that it's important and she must go through with it, and while Tommy was driving, the cartel ambushes him, forcing him off the road. Jimenez and his men drag him out from his car and take him to an oil field, where Jimenez makes it clear who holds the real power. He boasts that their operation brings in more money than any oil company ever could, and he then forces Tommy to watch as they detonate explosives, reducing the site to rubble. Meanwhile, Cooper returns home to find Ariana lost in the past and flipping through her wedding photos, and the moment she hears him, she rushes to the bathroom, not wanting to see the emotions. But Cooper has already seen the pictures, and when she finally gathers herself and steps back into the room, she tells him that she's ready to move forward. The cartel drags Tommy to the back of the club, where they tie him to a chair and shove a sack over his head, and Jimenez makes it clear Tommy missed his chance to negotiate, and there's no way he's making it out alive. He starts beating him with a hammer, and he then pulls out a knife, but before he can strike, gunfire erupts outside. They all go out, and leaving Tommy alone in the chair, and moments later, amidst the confusion, Jimenez is shot. Galeno steps in and starts talking with Tommy. He tells him that he wants to restore the balance, and Tommy, despite his injuries, remains firm, and he makes it clear that if they want things to go back to normal, they need to stay out of MTEX's way. He warns that any move against him will bring the DEA and every oil CEO into the fight, and eliminating him won't solve anything. It only escalates the war, and with MTEX resources and connections, the cartel cannot win. After the conversation, Tommy is taken out and Galeno leaves, and he calls Dale to pick him up, and Dale comes. Monty's situation worsens and Cammy cries, laying on him, and Angela sees Tommy was injured, but he refuses to tell her what happened to him and instead tells her that he loves her. The next day, Tommy goes out smoking a cigarette, and we see that he sees something and walking toward it.